Hello and welcome to Terpene Station. I'm Faceless Dave, and today we're going to talk about mixing distillate and terpenes. As always, I'm going to include links to everything I use in this video. Also, this video is not sponsored in any way. These are just products that I've purchased and have had good results with. Now what you're seeing here is a 10-gram syringe of Delta 8 distillate from Nature's Purpose. I've used them in the past. I like their distillate. And it is a lot easier to work with in a 10-gram syringe than in, say, an ounce jar. So for the purposes of this video, I'm just going to use the syringe here. I'm dipping it into some ripping hot water right here. It's not boiling, but it's pretty close. And we're just, just like with a smaller syringe, we're just heating it up to see if we can get that bubble to move in there. I'm just going to check real quick here to see if we're seeing any movement. Alright, this is definitely what we're looking for. The distillate is nice and hot, and we are ready to start weighing this out. Now, the scale that I have here is not one that I would recommend, only because it's only accurate to 1/10 of a gram. That really isn't accurate enough for what we're doing here. I've since bought a newer. It looks exactly the same, but it measures to 1/100 of a gram, and that's really what you want. So through the magic of editing, you're actually seeing the second half of this syringe getting weighed out. There's about just over 6 grams that we're going to get out of this syringe, and which brings me to maybe the overall message of this video, and that is that this process is not incredibly precise, obviously. Even if we were using a scale that was accurate to 1/100 of a gram, we would still have some quality control issues. That's why I always do small batches. Anything 10 grams or less is a lot easier to work with. And if something goes wrong, you can easily add more terpenes or more distillate to sort of compensate for that. Alright, moving right along, and let's start adding some terpenes to our distillate. Now, temperature is going to be a little bit more important here than when we were just weighing it out. You don't want the distillate to get too hot for a couple of different reasons. One, terpenes will evaporate or vaporize at relatively low temperatures, so I try and keep the distillate to around 140 degrees when I'm mixing in my terpenes. The other reason we don't want to overheat the distillate is because of oxidation. There's 2 ways that distillate tends to oxidize or become discolored. You might have seen carts with darker distillate in them. One is due to exposure to oxygen, which obviously we're exposing it to a lot of oxygen right here as we're mixing it. The other is heat. Adding too much heat to the distillate can make it oxidize prematurely. So we're just going to try and keep that temperature down, but allow for proper mixing to occur. Alright, let's add some terpenes to this distillate. Now I'm using Mass Terpenes Green Crack strain. It's one of my favorites, and I'm going to add half of the terpenes now and then mix, and then add the remainder and then mix again. And we do that so that hopefully we can mitigate the amount of terpenes that are actually evaporating during this mixing process. I guess I should talk about the recipe that I use, and I tend to go with 95% distillate to 5% terpenes. I find that the more terpenes you add, the harsher your end product will be. So I find that 5% is plenty to have a nice flavor profile, but have it not be too harsh. In order to get to that 95 to 5% ratio, we're going to mix 1 gram of distillate with 2 drops of terpenes. And yeah, remember when I said this process isn't very precise? Drops are not exactly what I would call a precise unit of measurement. But because we're using such small batches here, it's really the only way to mix it. If we were using a larger batch, we could do it by weight, but this is our only option with a small batch. Alright, the hard part is done. Now we just got to get the distillate into the syringe. Obviously, there's a lot of different ways to do this. The only thing you really need to be concerned with is how messy it can get. So let's just open up this syringe here. We got to take the plunger out of the back, and obviously we're going to use our trusty flat iron. Heat up that syringe. That's just so that when we start adding the distillate to the syringe, it doesn't stick to the edge. You probably noticed there that I put that stopper back on. I took that off so that I could get the plunger out, but you have to put it back in because if you don't, then when you start adding distillate, it's just going to ooze out the bottom. Alright, so this is pretty good and hot. I mean, we're going to have to continue to heat that syringe up throughout the process. Now, you're going to see here that this distillate is now about room temperature. And I know you might think, like, why would you want it to be not hot? Why is it easier to do it at room temperature? Well, I don't know if it's necessarily easier, but I have a hard time scooping up hot distillate, and you can't really pour it accurately. So this is a better, in my opinion, a better way to get the distillate into the syringe and not lose a lot due to spillage or any other waste that may occur if you're working with hot distillate and trying to pour it into that syringe. Now, I need to put the plunger back in. You'll notice that I filled it beyond the 1 milliliter line. That's okay as long as you have enough room for the rubber end of the stopper to fit fully into the syringe. Now, I am going to have to heat this up just a little bit more because you'll see there's some distillate in between the air bubble and the top of the syringe. And now we're going to have to pop that top off just for a moment to get the rest of that air out of there, and then we are going to be just about done. Just going to ever so slowly just push the rest of the air out. This distillate's still pretty hot, so it's not too hard. And pop it back on, and then we are done. Alright, thanks for sticking around till the end of the episode. Please let me know in the comments if you found this helpful. Next episode, we'll be reviewing 3 different vape batteries I've been using for quite a while, and I'll show you my secret to how to avoid oxidation of distillate after mixing. I'll give you a little hint. It involves pantyhose and a brake bleeder. Yeah, I know. It's weird, but it gets the job done. Anyway, that's enough from me. I've been Faceless Dave. Thanks for watching, and until next time, peace.